Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Following up on my Dinobot Slug review, I am now excited to bring you a review for the new Transformers Legacy Evolution Dinobot Sludge. Also a core class toy, also part of the new Volcanicus combiner. And during Sludge review, I praised the toy for how well it came out in all three of its modes. And I kind of hinted that maybe this guy wasn't quite so successful. So I want to take this opportunity to go ahead and look at this guy and determine if he is a worthwhile teammate to that new Slug. That being said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Sludge's packaging, then we'll open it up. We're going to quick look at the instructions, and then we'll see Sludge himself in dinosaur, robot, and combiner modes. Naturally, I'll be doing plenty of group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Sludge comes in your standard core class packaging, complete with this little peg flap right up here, showing off his Dino mode in all its glory. Get your half window showing off the toy right here. Got all your branding, get the character's name. On this side, you get his robot mode, looking very, very nice. And then on the back, you get renders of the toy in both beast and robot modes. He takes 8 steps to transform, and he's officially designated number 1 of 6 for Volcanicus. So I kind of did this out of order, with Slug or Slag being number 2 out of 6, but that toy generally showed up before Sludge did for most people, so yeah, that's just what I went with. So you can see, both modes look fairly competent. He's got this really weird thing going on with his legs that we'll definitely be looking at and talking about here during the review. But overall, it looks okay. And then down here, you get this little tiny version of the left half of your Legacy Evolution side panel. All right, so we got our little instruction sheet for Sludge here. Get his name on the bottom, all your logos around the sides, and a nice render in the middle. The first thing this does is show you how to connect his Brontosaurus head out of the package, and then it just goes straight to the robot to beast transformation. And his little mini dino mode there. And then on the back, this shows you how to not only transform Sludge into his combiner component mode, but also attach him to Slug, his wave mate, to form the complete torso for Volcanicus. And then again, you get your nice little diagram here, highlighting Sludge right here, Slug there, and they're leaving the other limbs a mystery for now. We know Grimlock goes here, and if you know Dino King's layout, you know where the other ones go too. So overall, pretty cool. Includes everything you need. And unlike Slug's instructions, these don't seem to have some mistakes in the steps, and I'll kind of get into that during the combiner mode bit. All right, now we get to see Sludge's beast mode, and it sure is a short, squat little thing, which is probably the opposite of what you would expect from a Brontosaurus. And a lot of that is owed to the fact that this is like a completely static beast mode. The neck doesn't move, the head and mouth don't move, the legs don't even move. They're all locked in place in this mode. Tail doesn't move. So you basically end up with this little like chibi figurine of a dinosaur. So definitely not as great as Slug's. That was overall a really nice recreation of the source material. This one, while it has all the design cues, is completely devoid of any real play value. Like, the only thing it's good for is just a static display, and even then, he's kind of funny looking. I mean, yeah. the parts, the anatomy don't really make sense the more you look at him. So that is unfortunate. I mean, at a glance, it's fine. It looks the part, does what it's supposed to do. But, I mean, it's a really boring beast mode. It doesn't do anything. And now we can see a nice little comparison of Sludge along with his leader class figure from Studio Series 86. And this is clearly the better toy, which, I mean, on one hand isn't surprising because it is a leader, right? It has much more room for parts and everything, has a much higher budget. But the difference is pretty striking because this is a really solid beast mode. It's got like the neck and head articulation, all that. The legs move, the ankles pivot. The only thing that doesn't actually move on this guy is his tail, but, that's pretty rare on a G1 Dinobot anyway. So, yeah, I mean, not even a comparison. And unfortunately, unlike Slug, or Slag if you want to call him, these two, they don't really match up very well. Slug's core class toy did a really good job of looking like a miniature version of the leader class. Here, I mean, this just looks like a cheap bit of merchandise, something you get out of like a gacha machine or something. So, Unfortunately, this guy's just really not living up to the standard that was set by the first figure we looked at. And here's a quick group shot with Slug, who you can see is just clearly the better looking dino mode. He actually articulates, he's got arms that move back and forth, legs that move back and forth. The mouth can open, though, again, don't open it too far, it looks really weird. Just the whole deal is night and day different. Like, this guy doesn't seem to have engaged in many compromises to achieve 3 modes, whereas this guy, I mean, this mode is entirely sacrificed for the other 2, or maybe even for just one of them, which we'll see soon. So yeah, it is a shame that coming off the high of Slag here, we end up getting this dinky little dino right here, who's actually way smaller too. Did you notice that? The Brontosaurus is supposed to be huge, one of the largest dinosaurs ever, and he's so much smaller than the Triceratops that it's just kind of silly looking. So yeah, it's a shame. It really is. He was definitely designed under a very different philosophy compared to his wave mate, because whoever designed Slug here, they really went out of their way to make all 3 modes look good, and I can't say the same for this guy so far. Right, now we're going to transform Sludge to his robot mode, and it's a pretty simple transformation. So you start by popping the dino head down a little bit, and you're going to kind of pull these apart at the same time to unsheath the fists from the back section here. Lift these up as far as they'll go. You're going to swing this part down, separate the feet. You're going to swing this around 180, like so. Separate the arms, fold them back like this, and flip the head down. And that's it. This is the little tiny robot mode for Sludge. And it's funky looking for sure. You can see a lot of awkwardness in the designs and proportions that are necessary to facilitate what's going to be that combiner mode. So he's got kind of these big old holes in the chest here. The arms are on ball joints, which is good, and they're pretty tight, so you get a nice range and stability. And then you get, this crazy looking kibble here, which is actually a structural part of the leg. So if you lift up this little skirt flap, you can see his legs are just completely disconnected from the body here and are being held on by these things. So they're trying to give you the illusion of cohesive legs, right? And it kind of looks that way at first glance, but the second you start posing him, you realize, man, this guy's got some funky legs. Just a really weird system. I've never seen it done like that before. You got the usual dino kibble, but I'm not going to knock him for that. That's part of his design right there. The head does swivel, which is nice. The waist, I don't know if I call it a waist swivel. It's kind of like a mid-torso swivel, which I guess kind of works, but still weird. He's just a weird bot. He really is. Not, I would say, as bad as the dino mode, because he can actually move and pose and all that, but he's really bizarre looking. Like, definitely was designed around the Volcanicus concept rather than the other way around. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's functional. It's just bizarre looking. And unfortunately, it doesn't come with any kind of accessory. There's no blaster, no sword, anything. So he's completely weaponless. I mean, it's okay. It does the job, I guess, but it's not, I wouldn't call it good. You know what I mean? It's just, it exists. It's the necessary robot mode to get us to the final mode. And I mean, it serves, but I can't say I'm impressed with it. And now we get our robot comparison, and you can see the height difference is very striking. He barely goes above this guy's knees right here, so he's way, way smaller. But, Sludge is supposed to be big, so kind of makes sense here. Obviously the better rendition. It just isn't completely compromised in every way over here. The only issue I have with the leader class Sludge, specifically the robot mode, is that he does have some tolerance issues, especially in like the hip ratchet area. And when I got him out of the box, he wouldn't even stand up. He would just flop backwards at the hip joints here. And I was able to rectify that a bit by tightening the, if I can show them to you, tightening the screws back here. It does help steady out the ratchets a bit, but it's still not great. Like if I pushed on him, he would definitely flop backwards. So yeah, QC issues, but design-wise, he's great. They just needed to tweak the tolerances a bit on that guy. But yeah, I mean, he just, like the beast mode, he really pales in comparison. He doesn't look like a miniature version of this guy. He looks like a horribly mangled and deformed version of this guy. So beast mode, not great. Robot mode, really not great either. Better. It moves, but it looks just as bad, if not worse. So yeah, I wish it could be more positive, but I want to be honest with you guys. Like, it's not good. Sacrifice on the altar of combination. And here's our group mode shot for Slag or Slug. And again, just far more competent mode for Slug here. Now, I don't want to give the impression that I think the designers just didn't try with Sludge. I don't think that's it at all. I do think it's the fact that these two just form two very different parts of the combiner, and therefore they have different structural requirements to pull that off. And I think Slug just gets the benefit of becoming a part that allows his other two modes to be more cohesive. Whereas this guy has to function in a way that is just very counterintuitive to being any sort of real triple changer. And, you know, he was designed to just be a torso piece first and foremost. Which is going to happen in combiners. Like, your vehicle and robot modes are always going to suffer to some extent because of that combiner functionality. And I think this is really just a function of the fact that these guys are really small. They don't have the luxury of a higher part count to make things work better. And I will say that despite the shortcomings for this guy, he's still a lot better than any of the previous like Core or Legion class combiners we received, like that Prime Abominus. Like, he's competent, you know what I mean? I think they did a really good job. He just had to be sacrificed because of the transformation scheme. And because of the fact that these guys are intended to eventually be turned into a completely different team of combiner guys. So, yeah, no, it is what it is. Slag over here just lucked out because he got to transform in a way that suits his two modes better than Sludge. And finally, we have our transformation for Sludge's combiner piece mode. And his is very, very simple. So just take him, swing his arms up like this, kind of add a little bit because we need clearance in a moment. Then you rotate the legs, really either direction, but outward like this, right? And we're going to swing the actual robot feet and all that up. And he's got this tab here. It's going to tab in, well, I guess this is the tab, and here's a slot right here. So they're going to tab together. You got to push them in kind of firmly, but they will go. That's going to give our combiner the stability it needs. And again, this is why he's built the way he is, right? Because he has to form half of the torso as well as the hip and thigh section of Volcanicus. He needs to be sturdy. So that's just why he is the way he is. All right, so this is that mode, just without anything else going on. Now, you actually want to take the tail piece, Sans Combiner Head, from Slag, and you're going to plug it in with the gold part facing inward. So you got the silver like facing out here. That's going to give you these extra holes, which are going to be used for the combination. Now, I want to show you guys Slag here real quick, because I want to point out something. When I did his review, I mentioned how the instructions were wrong in one regard, where it had his little wings like flipped down in robot mode when they should be flared out like this. But also in the combiner mode, the instructions had his arms facing the other way with these 5mm pegs like facing inward, and that's actually incorrect. You want them facing out because the arms are actually going to tab into the body here to make it stable, and you're going to use these posts here for the combination. So you just got to take them. Sludge's head is going to go inside this recess here, and these three posts are going to go in these holes. So you just kind of press everything down uniformly, kind of wriggle it till you get everything right. Get it all to line up and press in, nice and sturdy, like that. And then you're going to use these holes inside the arms to plug onto these posts. So, is it in there? Ah, there we go. It's got to be swung out more. All right. And I guess, yeah, you know what? I think these actually go on the fist, don't they? Maybe? Maybe not. No, they do. Okay, yeah. So these little 3mm posts right here on the shoulder pads actually plug into the bottom of his fists, too. It'll go. This one doesn't want to play ball very much. It's just a tolerance issue. All right. But that's what you get. Personally, I'd swing these in for now. I don't think they need to be flared out. I'll make them more streamlined. So this is the torso mode for Volcanicus, the complete one. And it's looking nice. It's looking very complete now, yet, you can see like the true length of his torso down to his knees. Everything comes together swimmingly. We have ports here where the arms are going to plug in. We got ports here where the legs are going to plug in. And like I said, these joints are pretty sturdy. They're universals, which is not something you see very often on a core class toy, but they're needed for that stability, so I'm glad they didn't skimp on that. Nobody wants a floppy combiner. Overall, he looks good. I think he's come together very well. Got a pretty sizable backpack, but it's kind of streamlined and nice looking, so I don't mind it. This mouth, it's kind of pushed open a little bit when you have to press it down into this hole here, but not too much. It's not very distracting. And of course, the head could turn back and forth. It's just plugged in there. So overall, it's really nice looking. You can even make it stand up by swinging the thighs back a little bit and just resting on this kibble here. So yeah, I really like this. I think this is turning out to be very, very impressive looking so far, and really looking forward to seeing just the completed product here, because I think it's going to be a very, very cool looking mini combiner. And this completes our look at the new core class Sludge. I've made no secret of the fact that I think the Beast and Robot modes are pretty much absolute bunk. It is unfortunate, but I plan on displaying these guys in their combiner mode anyway, so, I'm not too bothered by it. Like, these guys are just a means to an end to get a nice little mini Volcanicus for me, because I love combiners. However, I do completely understand the massive disappointment this guy is going to be for some people that really just want Dinobots at the core size. A lot of people were thrilled about the fact that they're going to be just shoehorned into another combiner, and I totally get that. So if your collecting priorities are, having your individual Dinobots to go with your other core class G1 characters, he's going to be very disappointing. Like, he just doesn't look good in either of his normal modes. However, if you are somebody who's really just buying these guys to build Volcanicus, or someone who is just seeing these guys as a stepping stone to getting a Dino King, I think you'll like him just fine, right? He forms a really nice piece of the torso. Again, he's using those nice universal joints for the combiner hips, and he plugs onto Slug or Slag very securely, and together they just make an awesome torso. And honestly, I didn't know if we were ever going to get those 6-bot combiners, where you got 2 bots making the torso instead of 1. I wish they were doing stuff like this back when they tried to tackle Liokaiser, instead of giving us that abomination that was, evil Skylinks, basically. So, I think it's an interesting way to test the waters for these. Naturally, I'd want to see combiners on a larger scale, because I prefer full-scale toys over the core class, unless they're core because they're supposed to be that small. So, kind of mixed feelings, but I do like it for what it is. And it does look like it's shaping up to be a very awesome little mini combiner. And who knows, maybe they'll do more like this in the future. We might see a core class Devastator at some point, which would probably actually be about the size of like the regular G1 Devastator, because those guys are pretty tiny anyway. So we might see stuff like that, or maybe like a core class Superion Bruticus. Like, it's a good way to see if this works. And despite the fact that this guy definitely got the short end of the stick when it came to his normal modes, I still think it's very promising, and I do look forward to collecting the rest of these guys and seeing just how good of a job the design team does creating their first little mini G1 combiner. Of course, that is just how I feel about this toy. Now I want to know what you all think of Sludge. Do you like the way he came out? Are you more excited about the combiner aspect, so you don't really care about the other 2 modes? Or maybe you actually like the 2 modes. Maybe you find them kind of endearing and cute in a weird way. Or do you not want this? Either because you have no interest in a combining Dinobot team, you really hate the way this came out, or you just don't want a core class Dinobot. Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comment section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when we post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Transformers Legacy Evolution Core Class Dinobot Sludge. And with all that said, I will see you next time.